Hey, everybody, welcome to the Money and Media podcast. And I'm so excited that today I get to talk to somebody who I feel like I've talked to quite a bit. She's a frequent guest on the show that I create, Stacking Benjamins. Let's say hello to certified financial planner, Katie Brewer. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing great.
Well, FinCon is interesting from an advisory standpoint. And, being a guy that used to be an advisor, I think I might be able to weigh in a little bit here too, Katie. But when did you first hear about FinCon and why did you decide for your practice that this type of a conference was for you?
Isn't that funny that I always think of FinCon in terms of like where it was instead of when it was? So I can tell you I've been to the Charlotte FinCon and the New Orleans FinCon, and one of those two was the first one. It's
Yeah.
funny that I have no idea what year that was. It's probably 2014-ish.
I think that means you've been to four, right? Because there's San Diego in there also. Did you go to San Diego?
Yes, I half went to San Diego. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, so that'd be four. So this would be your fifth thing.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you're looking at 14. Nice math.
Yeah. That's yeah, do I get a pen or something?
I think last year he did have like 5-year pins.
Yeah.
And I was jealous because I could get the pin for all of them except the one. I didn't go to the first one. I just started blogging, so missed out on that one. But why did you decide? Because the first thing a financial advisor thinks isn't about going to this one. There's a big TD Ameritrade conference, as you know. There's plenty of industry conferences. Morningstar in Chicago has stuff. There's all of these financial advisor conference. Why go to this type of a hybrid thing?
So I feel like I go to other conferences as well so that I can learn more about my field of financial planning. The reason I go to FinCon is so that I can learn from other folks who marketing is what they do on a day-to-day basis. And honestly, they're way better at it than any advisor that I know that doesn't go to FinCon. So the ones that go to FinCon are kind of the best of the best at being out there and being able to communicate both with their current clients and with prospective clients. And so I kind of feel like I get to, hang out with people that are really passionate about money, but also folks that know a lot more about marketing than pretty much 99% of financial advisors or financial planners.
Yeah, I think a lot of advisors can learn a ton especially about like how to talk on social media, and I think that a lot of the messaging, tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but from my perspective, a lot of the messaging and a lot of what you learn at FinCon, don't get me wrong, you still have to deal with compliance, but it's very compliance friendly. Would you agree?
Yeah. And I mean, I think you can always like figure out what works for you in your structure and then take it back and actually implement it within whatever you're doing. If you're with a broker dealer or if you're with an RIA, like you can kind of bend it into what you can actually do, kind of marry it with the fun compliance part of our industry. But I think everybody can get something out of it.
Yeah, well, let's dig into these. And by the way, we'll have a link on our show notes page to everything that Katie and I are about to discuss at finconexpo.com. But let's start off with this thing called the advisor track. There's a whole track specifically for advisors who want more.
Yes. And so I really like that because there are some things that are in FinCon that are not relevant to most advisors. So for example, I'm a fee-only financial planner. I kind of take this like weird, like chastity type oath that I will not take commissions from anywhere. So my website is set up so that I can't do anything where people click on things and I get paid for it. Boo. So I probably wouldn't want to be going to a whole bunch of those sessions about how you can get all of, these great money things off of people clicking on your website because it's completely not relevant to me.
None of the affiliate things will you ever find Katie Brewer in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I might sit there and be a creeper and see if I can figure anything out from it. But I don't make affiliate income because that's not part of my business model. So I really like with the advisor track that it's all really relevant to, actual advisors that are practicing in the field.
Can you think of any presenters, or roughly, and we don't have to get the name exactly right when it comes to like what the title was of the presentation, but presentations you went to in the past to give somebody a feel of kind of the type of thing that they'll get from the advisor track?
Yeah, so I mean, there's always presentations where an actual advisor or somebody that works closely with advisors is kind of in charge of it. So I know I went to one a few years ago that Jeff Rose gave. He's a financial advisor. He has a great website and a huge social media following. And I thought that was really, really helpful because he actually brought up different advisors' websites, and he kind of almost did like a critique of each of them. Like, here's what, is going really well in this. Here's what could be improved upon on this. And so none of it was just like pure strategy. Like, all of it was very, very relevant, because it was like, let's actually pull up real websites and kind of talk about, if you're trying to build your website or if you're trying to tweak it, like what you could be doing to make it better.
Yeah. I mean, even from a design perspective, and I've, as we tried to book people for the Stacky Benjamin show, I love having, as you know, advisors on, and you go to their website and some of the design decisions are not nearly what they are for other FinCon attendees.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and that's just because for the most part, advisors kind of throw up a website and then don't really think about it after that. Whereas this particular conference is really great to get you kind of thinking about those things that are just running in the background, and you might just be able to quickly optimize them.
I like also some of these, there's some tracks in the past, and I know that we have them again this year, where they talk about things that financial advisors can learn from bloggers. And I'm thinking specifically of one that's in our show notes from last year, which was why bloggers beat financial advisors at giving financial advice and what advisors need to do to catch up and win back their audience with Kaylee Barsh. And you think about what Kaylee was talking about in that session, Katie. I mean, really, you think the top people on the internet for giving advice should be the pros, and yet partly because of the stigma compliance hanging over your head, you're not sure what to say. Third, you're also worried, your company's worried. If you work for one of these big, wirehouse firms, they're worried you're going to say something incorrect or something that makes them look bad.
Right.
Pros end up saying nothing.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, that's kind of some of the default of financial advisors or financial planners is like, oh, well, we meet one-on-one with people and like we specialize in just giving personalized advice and stuff like that. I kind of think of it as like, if I can help people just by having content out there, and that's it. That just gives them an awareness that they actually need help, or that they've got it all together, or that, maybe they should go speak to a different type of professional. Obviously, it helps me by bringing people in and getting them engaged, but it also helps other people by just kind of getting them pointed in the right direction and giving them some background.
The second thing on this list is to join the Facebook group. We are doing this live for those of you listening to the audio on the Facebook group. So if you want to hang out with us while we're making these in the future, in the search bar on Facebook, put in FinCon community and request access. And in a short while, assuming that you're a FinCon attendee, you'll get in. But I know, Katie, for advisors, there's a lot of talk that advisors can learn from just from this group.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the Facebook group kind of gives you an idea of like who's involved and, things like this, like being able to actually see what's coming up. Also, there's a whole lot of people that are freelance writers and reporters that, maybe they go and post to the entire world of something that they need, or maybe they just put a quick like call out to people that are in the FinCon community. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's been helpful to both advisors and to folks that are kind of looking for some quotes and don't necessarily want to sort through 1,000 responses that they get from kind of asking the broad general public for input on stuff.
Well, and I know talking to a lot of creators, the FinCon crowd is better at answering succinctly. We kind of know, but from going to the conference conferences, or at least being in the group that we know kind of what they're looking for. But heck, if you're an advisor, the hardest thing about your job's marketing. There's people giving you marketing opportunities all the time in the group.
Right, exactly. And I feel like it's really good to be able to kind of like almost meet people or get to know a little bit about them before you show up to the conference, so that you're not just showing up not knowing anything about anybody. That kind of allows you to figure out who may have like the same type of audience that you have. And it helps you to kind of figure out like who you might want to actually meet at FinCon, as opposed to just showing up with no background
Yeah.
and trying to bump into the right people.
No, I like that, especially even though there's a set advisor track that we talked about earlier, you really still FinCon's such a huge thing. You got to go in with a plan.
Right. And they don't make you go to the advisor track. So even though the advisor track is relevant, like they're not going to, fuss at you and take a cattle prod and prod you back into it if you want to, go research some other things like podcasting. And there's usually a podcasting track that's specifically for that. And it's not, under the advisor track. So I know that's one that like Roger Whitney has spoken on in the past because he's got a podcast as well. You've probably been on the podcasting track, I hope.
Maybe once or twice, maybe. Yeah, but I've never been in the video track, but it's the same thing, right? You've got the video track, you've got all these other tracks, and advisors want a lot of that stuff too. So yeah, it's don't think you have to stick with the advisor track. I think that's good. We've got a couple great keynote speakers. We talked earlier about these tracks. We were just talking about the track, but these keynotes, I think from an advisor perspective, Katie, I feel like being a former advisor, sometimes these other conferences you go to, there's a lot of inside baseball, and better than most from going to this conference that what consumers are talking about and what advisors are talking about are often two totally different things. And the keynote got to be a great way to get the heartbeat.
Yeah, I always laugh that we're kind of like the engineers of finance as financial planners and financial advisors. So sometimes we're talking to other advisors about really like very specific technical things. As opposed to, some of the keynote speakers, like we've got Ramit Sethi, which am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, Ramit Sethi.
Yeah. Which I'm super excited to see his keynote speaker, because he's got a huge following. And so there are a lot of people out there that are kind of hearing what he has to say. I always like to kind of keep up with, all these different correspondents and writers and stuff like that, because if somebody comes to me and says, well, I follow, the Ramit Sethi way of thinking about finances, or I follow the Dave Ramsey way of thinking about finances, instead of me being like, oh no, scrap all of that, I can go, okay, great. This is what you've learned. And this is kind of how you believe in managing your money. And let's, let me as the advisor back into that and not just, totally throw everything in the garbage can. Because there's a lot of really good stuff that comes out of all of those, personal finance writers and journalists.
We do this live on the Facebook community, as I mentioned earlier, and our good friend Mike Delgado says he thinks Ramit was at the first FinCon. PT interviewed him on stage, and I'm thinking that was actually Mike the second FinCon. That was the one I went to in Denver, but he did. He interviewed him on stage, and it was amazing. And maybe he interviewed him in year one too. I wasn't there, but the second year, I know he definitely did. And Ramit is phenomenal to listen to, and I can't wait to hear him this year. The thing that I was thinking while you were talking, in your practice, you can say, I've got this way of thinking, of looking at it, and then quote a popular author like Ramit, Dave Ramsey, someone like that, Gene Chatsky, whoever. But also, I used to mentor some young advisors, and they'd hear something like The Motley Fool or Liz Weston or somebody, and they'd say, well, I think, no, you don't need to think about it their way. And I think about somebody like Liz, who has kind of a big bullhorn, and is known nationwide, and everybody knows who she is, and you're a little
Right.
advisor, in my case, in Detroit. Like, who are they going to believe? They going to believe them or you? So being able to bridge that gap the way you did, I think kind of gets rid of some friction between you and your client.
Yeah, and that goes back to sometimes financial advisors being a little bit of financial engineers, where we're like, oh, well, 92% of it, is something that I believe in or, what I stand behind. But the 8%, let me talk about that and how, I hear a lot from advisors like, oh, well, Dave Ramsey says there's a 10 to 12% return, and they get locked in on that. But you know what? That's only the 8% of what he's teaching everybody. The other 92% is super relevant. It's about budgeting, paying attention to stuff, doing stuff along with your values, things like that. So I feel like all of this, especially with the keynote speakers, I'm excited as a financial planner to not have to sit through another economist presentation where they're saying the exact same stinking thing at every single conference. So I'm always really excited to see the keynote speakers because I feel like they're a lot more like relevant to who I actually work with.
Well, and also, there was a story recently, I believe on Market Watch, showing that at a recent economist conference, like all of these 9 top people were wrong, right? So, and they'll spend all day talking about all this economic data, and then these very highly paid people.
It's kind of like a meteorologist, right? They can tell you what they think is coming up, but you may or may not happen.
I want that job. How do I get that job? That'd be so good. Next, and this one is, I know, personal for both of us. You go to other conferences as a financial planner, you got to dress up, man. At FinCon, dress your brand and dress to be comfortable.
Yeah. Essentially, folks show up. I don't know if anybody's really in a suit. I think occasionally, like somebody who's actually like sponsoring or that may be recorded that day may be in a suit. But for the most part, what I see is everybody's either business casual down to casual, rocking those free t-shirts that they just got and just kind of being in your element because you're there to learn. So unless you're being interviewed that day and it's going to be live broadcasted, maybe you want to put a nice shirt on. But other than that, I think it's, definitely one of the more casual conferences, which I really appreciate because I always feel a little silly that I dress up more sometimes to go to financial advisor conferences than I would to actually meet with my clients. So it doesn't really make sense, but everybody's wearing their suits. So I'm like, let me go dust off the freaking suit and put it on. But good thing about FinCon is you can wear your suit if it makes you feel comfy. But no one else is expecting you to show up dressed to the nines. So just wear what you want to wear.
Yeah. So I was glad you said that. If you want to wear a suit, go ahead and wear it. Nobody's going to be negative toward you if you wore a suit. You will be the, and I won't say best dressed, but you'll be the most dressed person in the room if you wear a suit. But, but I remember my first FinCon, that same thing. I was so used to going to financial planner conferences. I went out and I actually bought a bunch of clothing. And
so you were the guy in the suit. You were like, I gotta get the suit so I can fit in.
I even got this really, just like really nice dress pants and a nice dress shirt. And I remember that I wore the same pair of jeans for like 3 days because I felt so overdressed and I left all that stuff. I ended up being able to wear it in other circumstances, but man, it was the year I wasted a bunch of money. I felt
yeah. Hopefully you left the tags on, you take it back later.
That's funny. Mike is saying t-shirts and sneakers, is a way to go. And our friend Dylan in the Facebook group says somebody needs to wear. Remember, Katie, the Matthew Lesko suit with the question marks and the yellow?
Yes. I swear there were 2 people last year that actually had money suits. Was there 2? I don't know. Did they get it from the same person? I'm not sure, but I'd love to see the money suit again.
And Dylan says that I was quite dapper and wore linen suits. That is, we usually don't talk about Dylan's comments because I did not.
Yeah, I'm not sure that actually happened in reality, but it's a good picture to paint.
We'll scary, but yeah. Next up is things like the podcast and these videos, and you can check out the YouTube channel. It's not just about going to FinCon. Your head's going to be full of a lot of stuff, Katie. There's much more, other resources.
Yeah. And so, joining the FinCon group, also listening to the podcast, you're going to be ready to jump in with both feet instead of just showing up and kind of expecting that you're going to figure it out along the way.
The and that one I'm going to leave alone because not much more we need to say. Obviously, you found the podcast if you're here with us. Unless you're here watching the video, then no, you can also get the audio podcast, and sometimes those are expanded editions of these. So if you're watching us on YouTube as an example right now, we may have other audio only tracks on the podcast. So great, lessons if you're walking the dog. Great stuff.
Bonus content, man. Woohoo.
Yeah. And last year there were many sessions, in the year before that that we did with some great people. I think my favorite interview, besides this one we're doing right now, of course, was with Rosemary Groner. She had a phenomenal. She was talking about what she does with her newsletter. If you can go back and listen to that, whether you're a financial advisor or not, it was just fantastic stuff. Have you seen people use, I'm looking at the next thing on your list, Katie, using FinCon to find help? That's a good idea.
Yeah, I have actually. It's funny because I always have advisors ask who I'm working with, and I'll give them an introduction. She's awesome. But at the same time, there are a lot of other folks at FinCon that may be doing freelance writing, and it may be a perfect fit. So I know that I think I actually found the person who's doing social media for me right before FinCon, but I have actually had some other people help out with various projects that I have met through FinCon. Because if you're an advisor, you ask, and all advisors are using the same people because it's like the low hanging fruit. Whoever somebody else told you is who you end up using. Whereas you can find people that actually specialize in different things at FinCon. So you might be able to find somebody that can help out with your monthly newsletter, but you might also be able to find somebody that can help out with a really big project, like writing a book. There are some folks that attend FinCon that actually do editing as their primary professional work. So they might be able to help you with just the editing side. Yeah, I just think it's great because you've got not only folks that are in marketing as their full-time thing, but folks that are in marketing and actually understand finance, which is kind of like a unicorn to find, so that that you don't end up with somebody writing something for you, but not really understanding the terminology or the technicalities. You can really find people that actually specialize in writing for finance.
And as we talked about at the top of this, many people that understand the bear that compliance can be.
Right, exactly. So you'll find, folks that aren't going to start writing stuff about one particular client, or that aren't going to start making crazy promises. So for the most part, those things should fit into the compliance lens. As you and I know, you always have to go submit your hopes and dreams to compliance. And if they come back and say, you can do this, but it's got to look like this. And then, you take that and you just know for the next time around that's how you massage it.
And you know what? For people that are watching this specifically, to see if financial advisors might be hiring people at FinCon or around FinCon or looking for people at FinCon, a resounding yes. And it is, Katie's point, of a small community there. If you are somebody who gets a reputation for helping advisors, I will bet very quickly you'll have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 people knocking at your door.
Oh, because I just talked about how lazy we are. We're who are you using? Are they good? Are they reasonably? Okay, great. If they have capacity, then I'll use them.
But that's the hard it is to find good people, right? And if you're at a place where you find good, Tom's hanging out here with us, Tom Sylvester, and he's a coach for a lot of entrepreneurs, and says one of the best things about FinCon is the people and the connections. And that's exactly it, making a connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Next, expanding your revenue model. That's something you talked against you doing, but tell me about advisors doing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it might be something where I know for me particularly, I probably could be offering courses. So that's something that doesn't like conflict with a fee only model. So being able to like offer out a platform, a one to many versus a one to one. So those are ways that advisors might be able to expand their revenue model. I know quite a few advisors that do that. And it allows them to make extra money, but it also allows them to help people they wouldn't normally be able to help one-on-one. So it's kind of a win-win there. I know some other folks. So, I mean, there are advisors out there that can do affiliate links and such. Like I said, fee-only planners sometimes it's almost like the vow of chastity for doing stuff. But there are other folks that can do affiliate marketing or might be able to do sponsorships and stuff like that. So those are all things that, in addition to what you're already doing, that might allow you to make some, kind of icing on the top. Just from the things that you're already doing, the website that you already have and the content that you're already putting out.
Yeah, and you look at all the industry rags talking about how revenue's being squeezed and you never know how things are going to change tomorrow, like widening your income streams. Always, never a bad idea. Right. By the way, if you're going to do that,
diversification.
Nice job. If you're going to do that, PT was on, Philip Taylor, the guy who created FinCon, was on with me just recently. Go back and listen to that episode because he and I talk a lot about the Pro Pass, and the Pro Pass is where you're going to get to spend a lot of time with brands. Certainly, you can just walk around FinCon and talk to brands. Really gives you a one-on-one, nobody else in the way. You get a few minutes at least to talk to them. And then this year, for the first time, there's also a lunch there. So that's good. This is one of my favorite parts. The next one on your list here, Katie, which is discovering new fintech and digital solutions. I love the fact that a lot of these people come to FinCon.
Yeah, I really love it too, because it's a lot of like cutting edge tools that you might actually be able to integrate into your practice, or you kind of get, like a preview of things that are in development and may come out later for use. So I know last year we had quite a few different student loan type platforms. So we had Student Loan Buddy, and then I know we also had another one. I so wish I could remember, but it was created by some attorneys that actually work directly with student loans. And they also had this like great platform that kind of allow you to help folks with student loan calculations and stuff like that. So in addition, there are also like some tools that have to do with like money education, which is really great and important. So I really like just being able to kind of like, connect with these different people. And some of them are looking for advisor input as they create stuff and kind of put it out there. And, so if that's something that you're interested in, you might be able to actually, kind of be a beta tester for some of these different things.
Yeah, they specifically love people that have worked with larger numbers of people than just, yourself, 2, 3, 4 people. And certainly those people are welcome at FinCon. But as an advisor, you've got this front row seat to a lot of people putting kids through college, trying to retire early or just even retire on time or at all, trying to get out of debt. So when you can relay to them this variety of emotions that different people have, I think that makes you quite a valuable entity for a lot of these brands.
Yep, I totally agree.
The other thing too is that, and just for some advisors out there, I know when I first became a financial advisor, I thought that, my job was to know everything about everything. And then I realized from very smart mentors, and I know you believe this, Katie, it's not to know everything about everything. It's you're the trusted source that can tell them this is a great tool to use. This is a bad tool. Don't go near that one. And if you can be that trusted source, they're always going to, that's what you're doing for your client, is showing them the right path. And so they continually come back to you for more and more advice.
Yeah, it's not necessarily being the expert. It's being the expert that knows who the other experts are and are able to actually connect, the client, or even act as like a go-to and be able to coordinate with those different professionals.
Yeah, like a curator.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Number 9, and this you mentioned, Roger Whitney doing this, Ryan Inman doing this, Mary Beth Storjohan, Hillary Hendershot, the Robarges. I'm trying to think of all the advisors that had podcasts, and I'm going to miss a bunch of them. But you can learn how to start a podcast,
right? And not just learn how to start any podcast, like learn from other advisors that are already running a podcast, as well as other folks that are doing podcasts that are money related. So all of it is very relevant. Some of it's technical, but a lot of it is friendly to folks that are just starting one or kind of in the idea phase of starting one. So, I mean, there's always podcast movement. Shout out to podcast movement if you want to get like really into the technicalities. But I think at FinCon, you find a lot of really great stuff about essentially like why you should start a podcast, how you could start a podcast. If you already have one, like how to actually integrate tools that would be helpful. And you can always meet folks there that also are resources to people that have podcasts. So that if your cup of tea is not learning all of it, you just want to jump in and actually do it. I know I've met folks that actually help to like book you on podcasts that attend FinCon. There are folks that edit podcasts that are at FinCon. I mean, so you either can learn how to do it from FinCon, or you can figure out you want to do it and meet all the people that are going to help you make that happen. That are also attending FinCon.
Yeah, lots of people who are resources that if you get started, I remember how many questions I had when I got started, whether it is podcast, video, whatever that thing is that you're trying to do. I mean, there's Facebook, Instagram. I mean, all these people, just fantastic people, no matter what you're trying to create. And it's more about making those connections, like Tom so eloquently said in the comments here live. There's a few other comments I just want to run through, Katie, before we say goodbye, because everybody's chatty today and it's very good stuff. We've got, I think this is Daniel Kopp. It is. Hey, man. He says, fee-only advisors can learn much better digital marketing at FinCon than the other boring and stuffy financial conferences. I know you agree wholeheartedly with that, Katie.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I feel like just by attending FinCon that I've actually become a go-to for some of my local financial planner groups where they're asking me to come in as a speaker. And I'm going, man, I barely have scratched the surface of marketing stuff just from what I've kind of learned from other folks at FinCon and kind of attending the conferences and staying in touch with people over the years. So that always kind of makes me laugh because I'm like, I guess relevant to other financial planners or advisors, I'm a social media and marketing guru. Compared to folks that actually attend FinCon, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just throwing darts at stuff and trying to see if I can figure out what happens.
That's fantastic. And I think, and I'm getting a little bit behind on the comments who said this, but I think this is Tom said, I highly recommend the Pro Pass. A little extra investment makes it so much easier to talk to the people who are serious and doing big things. And that's fantastic. Cutting to the people that you're closest with, might have an affinity to. So many nooks and crannies, as my mom says, at FinCon that you can get lost in an area that has nothing to do with you. So the Pro Pass helps you cut to the chase.
Yeah.
And then also the marketing strategies at FinCon puts attendees well ahead of many in their field. Mike says he recommends hanging out in the hotel pub in the evening. A lot of networking and business relationships happen there. Katie, I'm feeling a headache coming on as Mike says that.
I always think that's kind of funny because I feel like I'm like an extrovert introvert. Like I love being with people, but then when I'm not with people, like I want to go hide in my room. And so I kind of have to plan ahead a little bit because I have to like go find my alone time.
Yeah.
Probably like late afternoon, early evening, so that I can go like network and make those connections.
100%.
I mean, I don't feel like you have to be like drinking people under the table. There's actually
No.
plenty of people that go there that don't drink at all, and no
Yeah.
one's going, "Oh my gosh, you can't attend FinCon unless you're doing shots in the lobby." But at the same time, you get to like meet people outside of the confines of these sessions that you're attending, and you get to actually know people personally and figure out like, you know, what they're trying to accomplish. And I really like meeting people and making connections between people that are not me, you know, because
Yeah.
I might have somebody that's saying they're looking for a great writer, and I might be like, I know one of those, and you need to chat with them. And here you go. Here's an introduction.
Yeah, it is this fine line, getting back to taking that time for yourself, that I think on one end, I go back to my room and because I'm an introvert at heart, like I'd say 80% of FinCon probably is. But but as I'm at my room, I also remind myself it's only 4 days, and I'm not going to get 4 days like this very often. So
Yes.
I get just enough to get the battery just up. You know how you've got that phone charger and you charge your phone just enough to get
Right.
you home?
Yeah. You hit the 15% and it starts telling you you're going to just run out all, and you get it up to like 20. Yeah, exactly. You got to recharge to get back up to your 20% to do the networking kind of outside of business hours.
I'm gonna leave it here with Tom's comment. He agrees with Mike and says some of his best relationships have come from hanging in the hotel lobby, especially at the end of the event when most people have left and you have the stragglers who hang out an extra day. One of my favorite things to do, Tom, to your point, is to ask, what was your biggest lesson? I love going around asking people. So what was the biggest thing that you learned, to see if there was any session that I should, learn more about that I missed, maybe some takeaway that kind of went over my head. Like, that is my number one question. What's the thing? What is that one thing that I might've missed? And then
I know, I kind of love like strategizing with people and being like, let's not all go to the same things, because I would like to multiply myself and attend this, this, and this. But you know what? If I attend this, you attend this, we all take really great notes, and then we kind of get back together and say, here were the 5 key takeaways. And it's like multiplying yourself. It's great.
Yeah. And you get to collaborate later, which is always good. Right. That's fantastic. So, Katie, I should ask you this. Creatively, I ask you when you're on my Stacky Benjamin show, what's going on at Your Richest Life Planning, but creatively there with blogging and all the stuff you do marketing wise, what's going on with you that way?
Well, as you know, I did not ever create a podcast because I like to talk about stuff and then be like, you know what? It's too hard and I have too many clients. But we're still kind of chugging away on the blog. I actually did quite a few videos that we're about to start releasing.
Sweet.
Just because I know that my husband's totally one of those people that he won't read my blog. I am married to somebody who has loved me and supported me for 15 years. And I literally cannot get him to read a stinking article, because you know what? He doesn't like articles. He likes videos. That's how he gets his content. So I'm trying to kind of like take some of the content that we've already done and just be able to like reach other people that like being able to digest that in quick 2 to 3 minute videos.
I've been on, I was on TV in Detroit locally for 9 years. And I think Cheryl, my spouse of 25 years, saw me twice. I was like twice a week.
Yep. You were like, oh, it's going to be at 6 a.m. And she's like, oh yeah, sure. I'll get on that.
Fantastic. Right.
Yeah.
Katie Brewer, thanks for hanging out with us and talking about the Advisor Channel.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks for having me on. I see everybody in the FinCon forums. And then hopefully see you there at the conference.